There's a point in every man's life when he realizes something uncomfortable. He is not the warrior he thought he would become. He might be strong on the outside but brittle inside. He might look disciplined but crumble under pressure. He might talk about ambition but lose to the smallest hesitation. Kato was that kind of man. He wasn't useless. He wasn't lost. But he wasn't the man he was supposed to be. Somewhere along the way, his life had become small, measured by routines that made him weaker instead of sharper. He woke up at different hours, delayed the things he knew he must face, and allowed fear to negotiate every decision he made. One day, after failing yet another task because of hesitation and doubt, he walked alone through the old cedar forest outside his village. The trees towered above him like silent witnesses, watching him confront a truth he had avoided for years. He wanted to change, but he didn't know how. The forest path curved sharply until it opened into a small clearing. At its center sat an old man wearing simple robes, eyes closed, back straight, sitting as still as a stone lantern. Kato recognized him immediately. Master Renga, a man whose presence carried weight without a sword, whose silence felt heavier than shouting, whose calm exposed the chaos in anyone who stood before him. Kato approached slowly. "Master, I need help." Renga opened his eyes. They were sharp, unblinking, almost too clear, as if nothing escaped their understanding. "You don't need help," the master said. "You need a habit." Kato frowned. "A habit?" Renga stood, his movements controlled like water poured from a cup. The difference between a weak man and a warrior is not strength, talent, or even courage. It is a single habit, practiced every day, without fail. Kato's chest tightened. "What habit?" Renga turned toward a narrow trail leading deeper into the woods. "Follow me." The path led to a stone courtyard hidden beneath the branches of ancient pines. Renga pointed to a tall wooden pillar in the center, worn down by time and thousands of strikes. "This," he said, "is where the weak become warriors." Kato stared at it. "By training here?" "No," Renga replied. "By facing the moment you always avoid." He stepped behind Kato and spoke close to his ear. The moment between thought and action. That tiny pause. That hesitation. That small delay where fear grows. Kato swallowed hard. He knew that moment well. It was a moment he paused before starting his work. The moment he questioned whether he was ready. The moment he replayed old mistakes. The moment he doubted himself for no reason at all. That hesitation had cost him years. Renga placed a wooden sword in Kato's hands. There is a habit older than any martial art, older than any training. Samurai practiced it. Monks practice it. Every powerful man in history practiced it, whether he realized it or not. Kato gripped the wooden sword. "Tell me." "Immediate action," Renga said. "The warrior's habit." Kato looked confused. "Just acting quickly." "No," Renga's voice sharpened. "Acting immediately after you decide, without negotiation, without delay, without letting the mind poison the moment." He moved to the pillar. "Strike it." Kato raised a wooden sword and swung. It hit the pillar with a dull thud. Renga nodded. "Again." Kato struck it again, harder this time. "Again." Kato continued. Renga watched the micro-expressions on his face, the small winces, the brief pauses, the slight hesitation before each strike. "Do you feel it?" Renga asked. "Right before you swing." Kato panted. "Feel what?" "That whisper in your mind, the one that questions the strike before you make it. That is what keeps you weak." Kato froze. He did feel it. A tiny voice, subtle but real. Renga stepped in front of him. "Weak men think twice where warriors act once." He tapped Kato's chest. "And you have been thinking twice your whole life." Kato's throat tightened. "How do I stop it?" "By practicing the ancient habit," the master said. "The habit that forged warriors." Renga took a deep breath. When a warrior decides, he moves before thought interferes. He stands before doubt enters. He acts before fear arrives. He takes the first step before the mind has time to negotiate. Kato stayed at the pillar. The truth hit him like cold water. Every failure in his life had grown from hesitation. Every regret had roots in delay. Every lost opportunity had started with a pause. That pause had been his enemy all along. Renga positioned him again. Now we train. Kato swung the wooden sword. This time, he tried not to think. He simply let his body move. But thoughts still came, almost like a shadow chasing him. You hesitated, Renga said. Again. Kato swung. You hesitated. Again. Harder. Faster. Determined. Hesitation. Kato's hands trembled. Sweat dripped down his face. His breath grew uneven. Why can't I stop it? Renga stepped so close their foreheads almost touched. Because your mind has ruled you for too long. A weak man is ruled by the moment before he acts. A warrior rules that moment. Kato's heart pounded. Renga's voice became soft, but sharp as a blade. Tomorrow, we begin removing that hesitation. And when we're done, you will not be able to hesitate even if you try. Kato exhaled slowly. Something inside him stayed. Not confidence, not strength, but possibility. He bowed deeply. I'll return at dawn. Renga nodded once. Good. Warriors are made in the morning, not the afternoon. As Kato walked back through the forest, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. A spark, a fire rekindling, a hint of the warrior he could become. All because he had finally seen the enemy he had ignored his entire life. The hesitation between thought and action. The small pause that decides a man's entire fate. And tomorrow, he would begin to kill it. Kato returned to the courtyard before sunrise, long before the world had fully awakened. The sky was still a deep blue, the stars fading slowly as the first thin line of gold crept over the treetops. He felt the cold bite of morning on his skin, but instead of shrinking from it, he embraced it. Something inside him felt different, not stronger yet, but awake in a way it hadn't been before. Master Renga was already there, sitting with his back straight, hands folded, as if he had been waiting for hours. He didn't turn when Kato arrived. He didn't need to. You came early, Renga said. Kato bowed. I want this, Master. Renga stood, movements precise and smooth. Wanting is a beginning. Doing is a becoming. He gestured for Kato to follow him into the inner courtyard. Today, the space fell heavier. The tall wooden pillar stood like a judge, waiting to expose him again. But behind the pillar, Kato noticed something new, rows of small stones arranged in a spiral pattern. Renga pointed to the stones. This is where hesitation is reborn, and this is where yours will die. Kato swallowed. What must I do? You will walk the spiral, Renga said, step by step, slowly, deliberately. Kato blinked. That doesn't sound difficult. Walk, Renga said simply. Kato stepped onto the first stone. The cold surface pressed against his bare feet. He moved to the second stone, then the third. After a few steps, he understood what Renga meant. Each stone was shaped differently. Some were smooth, some uneven, some wobbled when stepped on. Each one required awareness. Each step forced him to adjust, to think, to decide. This is your mind, Renga said. Unstable, uneven, always shifting. Kato continued, his breath steady at first. But soon, he felt it, the familiar pause, the slight tightening of his chest just before he moved from one stone to the next. Renga watched him closely. There it is, the hesitation before action. Kato clenched his jaw. I can feel it, like a whisper. That whisper rules you, Renga said. It has for years. Kato continued the spiral, slower now, more aware. His heart pounded harder with each step, not from the challenge, but from the war happening inside him. Renga stepped closer. You think hesitation is harmless. You think it is simply caution. But caution without danger is fear pretending to be wisdom. Kato stepped onto the next stone, wobbling slightly. His throat tightened. That moment before you move, Renga said, is where a weak man lives forever. The words hit Kato like a strike to the chest. He moved faster now, trying to beat the hesitation, but each time he rushed, he stumbled. When he slowed, he hesitated. Both paths exposed him. Renga circled him slowly. Listen carefully, Kato. A warrior learns to make the body obey before the mind interferes. How? Kato asked, frustrated. By practicing the ancient habit, Renga said. Action before thought. Not reckless action, intentional action done before the mind poisons a moment. Kato continued down the spiral, each stone a lesson in self-control. Sweat formed on his forehead despite the cold air. His breathing quickened. His thoughts grew louder. What if I slip? What if I fail? What if I can't change? What if I'm not meant for this? Renga's voice sliced through the fog. These are not thoughts. They are ghosts of who you used to be. Keep moving. Kato forced himself forward. The inner spiral grew tighter, smaller, more suffocating. The final stone felt impossibly narrow. His foot hovered above it for too long. Hesitation. Renga stepped forward sharply. Move! Kato dropped his foot onto the stone. The instant he did, the world felt different, like he had broken something invisible. His breath shook as he stood in the center of the spiral, chest rising and falling. Renga nodded. Good. You faced the pause instead of obeying it. Kato stepped off the spiral, legs trembling. Master, why does a simple step feel like a battle? Because it is one, Renga said. The battle between the man you are and the man you could be. Kato let those words sink in. Renga motioned toward the pillar again. Your next task. Strike the pillar 10 times. But you have exactly one heartbeat between each strike. No more. Kato positioned himself. Renga raised his hand. Begin. Kato struck the pillar. Thud. One heartbeat. Strike. Thud. One heartbeat. Strike. Thud. On the fourth strike, he hesitated, just a fraction of a second. Renga's voice cut sharply. Again. From the start. Kato nodded and began again. This time he made it to the 7th strike before hesitation slipped in. Again. Kato tried, over and over. His arms ached. His breath grew ragged. But the hardest part wasn't physical. It was a moment before each swing. The moment the mind tried to take control. Finally, after what felt like hours, Kato struck 10 times without a single pause. When he finished, he collapsed to his knees, chest heaving. Renga walked over and placed a hand on his shoulder. You have taken your second step toward warriorhood. Kato looked up, sweat dripping. What is happening to me? You are beginning to understand the habit that forged generations of warriors, Renga said. Act the moment you decide. Do not give fear the time it needs to grow. Kato stared at the ground, letting the truth settle into his bones. Renga stepped back. Come tomorrow at dawn. That is when we break the last part of your weakness. Kato slowly stood, legs trembling but heart steady. As he walked toward the edge of the courtyard, something shifted inside him. Not confidence, not power, but direction. For the first time in his life, he wasn't hoping he would change. He was becoming the man capable of changing. And if someone else out there feels a weight of hesitation the way Kato once did, if someone feels stuck in the pause between who they are and who they could be, then walking this path with us might be the first step they need. Because stories like this aren't just stories. They're reminders that transformation is possible for anyone willing to face the moment before action. Kato glanced back at Renga one last time before disappearing into the forest. Tomorrow, the real test would begin. Dawn arrived with a strange heaviness in the air, as if the forest itself understood that something final was about to unfold. Kato walked toward the courtyard with steady steps, but inside him a quiet storm brewed. Not fear, not doubt, but anticipation. Today, he would confront the deepest part of himself. Today, he would learn whether the ancient habit he had begun to build could truly turn him into a warrior. Master Renga stood in the center of the courtyard, facing away from Kato. His posture was impossibly still, like he had been carved from the trunk of a cedar tree. When Kato stepped onto the stone ground, Renga spoke without turning. Today, you will face the enemy that defeats most men before they ever begin. Kato bowed. What enemy is that, Master? Renga looked over his shoulder, eyes glinting with an intensity Kato had never seen before. The memory of who you used to be. A chill ran through Kato's body. Renga walked toward the tall wooden pillar. The weak version of you still lives inside. He whispers every time you hesitate. He begs every time you face discomfort. He negotiates, bargains, lies, and pleads. And today, we silence him. Cato felt his heartbeat quicken. How? Renga pointed to the ground where a line had been carved into the date. Stand behind the line. Cato stepped behind it. Renga continued. This line represents a life you've lived until now. Fearful, hesitant, governed by the pause before action. When you cross this line, you will not be the same man. But understand this clearly. Cato, transformation is not a feeling. It is a death. Cato swallowed hard. Death of what? The death of a man you thought you were. Renga said softly. Only then can the warrior be born. Renga gestured to the courtyard. Your test has 3 parts. Cato steadied himself. First, Renga said, you will face a fear that held you all your life. From behind a stone wall, Renga pulled out a thick wooden staff and placed it on the ground in front of Cato. When I lift my hand, Renga said, you will run toward the pillar and strike it 10 times. But your mind will scream at you to wait, to breathe, to prepare. That moment is a real battle. Cato nodded slowly. Renga raised his hand. Cato felt the hesitation hit him instantly, a tightness in his chest. A whisper, not yet. Take a breath. Slow down. You're not ready. But before the whisper could grow teeth, Cato exploded forward. His feet slammed against the stone. He grabbed the wooden sword. Thud, thud, thud. 10 strikes. No pause. No negotiation. Renga smiled, just barely. Good. You fought the first enemy. Cato wiped sweat from his brow. What's the second? Renga pointed to the spiral of stones. You will walk the spiral again, but this time you will run it. Cato blinked. Run? But last time. Yes, Renga interrupted. Last time, hesitation showed itself in the pause between steps. Today, it will show itself in the fear of losing control. Weak men fear speed because they don't trust their own balance. Cato inhaled deeply. Then he nodded. He stepped onto the first stone. He didn't ease into it. He moved. Fast. Each step felt like stepping onto uncertainty. Each stone wobbled. His foot slipped once. His knee bent awkwardly on another. His breath became a weapon, sharp, intentional. But he did not stop. He did not pause. He did not allow fear time to live. He burst into the center of the spiral, chest heaving, skin burning with effort. Renga watched with unreadable eyes. Good. You fought the second enemy, the fear of losing control. Cato squeezed his fists. And the third. Renga's expression shifted, becoming darker, deeper, almost sorrowful. The third enemy is the hardest, the enemy you've been carrying in your heart. Cato stood still. All your failures, Renga said quietly, all your excuses, all the days you gave up, all the promises you didn't keep. He stepped closer, placing a hand over Cato's chest. This is the self you must kill. Cato felt the weight of every mistake, every hesitation, every moment of weakness flooding into his mind. He felt his old self pulling at him, pleading with him to remain the same. Renga stepped back. Your final test is simple. You will cross the line. Cato looked at the carved line in the date. It was just a line, but it felt like a border between 2 lives, 2 identities, 2 futures. Cato, Renga said, if you cross with hesitation, you fail. If you cross with fear, you fail. If you cross because you want change but are not ready to become change, you fail. Cato took a long breath. Renga raised his voice. When you step across that line, you must do so with absolute certainty that the man behind you no longer exists. Cato saw flashes of who he'd been. The man who delayed. The man who doubted. The man who promised but didn't act. The man who bowed to hesitation. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them, something inside him hardened. He stepped across the line. Not quickly, not dramatically, but completely. The moment his foot touched the other side, something inside him dissolved. The hesitation, the weakness, the version of himself he had clung to for years. Renga watched without blinking. Who are you now? Cato breathed deeply. A man who acts. Renga nodded slowly. Then you are no longer weak. Cato felt his chest tighten, not with pain, but with a strength so deep it felt like a new heartbeat. And if someone else was standing behind that line, if someone watching this story knows they are still ruled by hesitation, they should know this too. Crossing the line doesn't require perfection, only commitment, only one decision made without hesitation. Renga placed both hands behind his back. You have learned the ancient habit, the habit that turns weak men into warriors. Cato bowed so deeply his forehead touched the ground. When he rose, he felt different. Inside, completely, unmistakably, he had taken the step that most men never take. The step beyond the pause. The step beyond fear. The step beyond who he used to be. And as he walked out of the courtyard, a quiet, powerful truth followed him. Weakness dies the moment action begins.